What's going on, guys? It is the Coaster Battleman here, bringing you another roller coaster countdown. It is the top 10 roller coasters at Kings Island 2018 edition. And I recently got to come here, and overall, Kings Island coming back for 2018. Awesome place. Definitely, they have a very nice roller coaster collection, some very fun rides. And yeah, let's move on. Let's do this. So, first, we have the honorable mentions. The kid coasters are in the 15th through 13th spot. Great Pumpkin Coaster I've never rode, so that's why it's in last, and it's really, really small. Woodstock Express, the train is really cramped, and I rode it last year, and I thought it was okay. And then Flying A Serial Chase was kind of, at least there was some room for you, like, because you could kick your legs out a little bit. And then Flight of Fear, for me, just kind of like inconsistent. Like, some rides I've had on it, I've thought they were solid, and then some were horrible, like the one I had this year on Flight of Fear. The launch was fantastic, and I was in the front row too. The launch was fantastic, but the restraint was down so hard on my foot that it hurt really bad for two to three straight minutes, and it was just horrible. So, pretty inconsistent ride. Racer, I'd kind of say the same thing, but it's a dueling coaster. That's why it's above Flight of Fear, despite Flight of Fear's awesome launch. And let's move on to the top 10. Number 10, we have Invertigo. So Invertigo is a Vekoma Invertigo model, kind of a dumb name to give it, but Invertigo is, I'd say it's kind of inconsistent, just like Flight of Fear and Racer. Like, I've had good to decent to good rides on it, and then some terrible rides. Like, I rode this twice this year, and one ride I had on it, I was in one of the middle seats, which I've never done before, and I had a pretty fun ride. And then I tried an outer seat where you're not facing next to other people, so it was pretty bad. So yeah, this coaster, sometimes your head will be smashed all over the place on it. Sometimes you'll have a very fun experience. It just depends on what row you're in. Number 9 is Vortex, and this coaster is actually kind of inconsistent, just like the last three I've said. When I first rode this coaster in 2016, I thought this ride was super fun and very enjoyable. And overall, I really thought it was a very fun experience. And then I tried it in 2017, and I say, it's not so good. But 2018, I came back and I rode it, and I thought it was kind of in between of 2016 and 2017. I thought it was pretty decent. It was pretty bumpy, but the inversions, the double corkscrew was good. The vertical loops were decent, but the Batwing, the first time I rode Vortex this year, terrible. And then the second time I thought the Batwing was pretty decent. So the inversions were alright. It's a pretty decent ride, I'd say. It's not horrible, but it's not some elite ride. So number 8 is Adventure Express, and it edges it just because of the theming, and it has some pretty intense turns, I have to admit. Even though this coaster is a family coaster and it's a mine train, the turns on this coaster are pretty intense, and this coaster has 2 lift hills as well. And overall, this coaster is pretty fun with some pretty solid, intense turns. It may not be the smoothest coaster at Kings Island, but I still think this is a pretty decent coaster. And the lift hill, the second lift hill, once you get to the top, oh hey, we're going to be going through some cool stuff, and then no, you hit the brake run. Pretty sad ending for Adventure Express, but this is a pretty fun coaster, and the theming on the second lift hill is really cool, with those statues raising their arms up and down and around. But moving on, we have number 7. It is the Bat, and this coaster, now we're getting into the good coasters that are consistently good. The Bat is overall a very fun aerodynamic suspended coaster, and I only rode it once this year, but all the times I've ridden it, I've always thought this was a very fun coaster. It And it's pretty short though. That's kind of my complaint with this ride, but I think it's a pretty fun coaster. The turns are fun. You get some decent speed. And I know this year it was only running one train, so we had to wait about 8 to 10 minutes, which we have to wait walk on, which isn't really too big of a deal. But once we were in the station for the train, like when we were right about to go, the line was super long and it looked like it was an hour wait just because of the trains only running one of them instead of two. So yeah, we got pretty lucky getting on the bat. So moving on to number 6, we have Backlot Stunt Coaster, and this is a fun ride. I probably rode this like 6 or 7 times when I was here at Kings Island because why not? Backlot Stunt Coaster, very fun. Once I got used to the intensity, it wasn't as good, but I still thought this was a pretty fun coaster with the crazy starting helix. You're flying through past the police cars, and there's some really fun elements. In the Kings Island version, in my opinion, of the Backlot Stunt Coasters I've ridden is better than the King's Dominion version. So yeah, moving on, we have number 5. We have Firehawk, and this is a very fun flying coaster. Of the 3 Vekoma Flying Dutchmans, this is the best by far. Batwing is good, but it doesn't match up to Firehawk for me. Firehawk is just a bit smoother, and I really do like the elements. The vertical loop is awesome, the drop is pretty solid. This is just a fun coaster. I really do like Firehawk. It may not have the crazy stats of other rides here at Kings Island or the length, but it's just one of those fun rides, you know? It's really enjoyable. I really do like Firehawk, and overall, very fun ride. At a lot of other amusement parks that are smaller, this would be easily a top 3 coaster there at a smaller park, but since Kings Island has so many coasters, it's at number 5. So we're at number 4, and I call this the Big Four, or the Fantastic Four for me, and we have Mystic Timbers coming in at number 4. And this coaster, originally in 2017, I thought with all the airtime hills and the shed, this would be some insane, crazy airtime machine. It would be easily the number 2 ride here behind Diamondback, and this coaster kind of disappoints me because I don't know why, but the restraints system is pretty bad in my opinion. I don't really like the lap bars they use for Mystic Timbers, and the airtime is pretty lackluster. Even though you have these crazy hills, the intensity is fantastic for Mystic Timbers. That's something I have to say, and the shed is pretty cool. I know the 3 main characters. It is a Diamondback snake, a tree monster, and some bats as well. So those are the 3 main things you'll see with Mystic Timbers, depending on what train you're on with the shed. And the shed was kind of a letdown. This coaster was kind of a letdown for me when I first rode it, but I was pretty surprised by the line for this ride. It was probably only like a 10-minute wait, which was very surprising because the park was so empty, and this coaster is only 2 seasons old, so pretty weird. But Mystic Timbers, still pretty fun ride. I really do love the intensity of this coaster. It kind of compares with the intensity of Maverick and Intimidator 305. Not like gray out kind of intense, but still very fun ride. Moving on to number 3, we have Banshee, and this is a very awesome coaster. And in my opinion, riding a middle seat on B&M inverts and floorless coasters is a clutch idea. So overall, Banshee, I try it in the front row and the third row in middle seats, in the 2 middle seats, and I think it's fantastic, super smooth. The inversions are awesome, and overall it's just a fantastic ride. And then I try out the side seats on row 2, and it's even more intense, but it's not really as smooth. So middle seat I recommend for the smoothest, but if you want intensity, go to the side seats. But Banshee overall, very awesome B&M invert. I wouldn't say it's as good as Afterburn, but I still think this is such a fantastic ride. And probably my favorite part of this coaster, and it's by far one of my favorite parts of any roller coaster on the planet, is that final inversion on Banshee. The final inversion on this ride with the transition into the helix. That is by far one of the greatest transitions on any roller coaster I've ridden. Just unbelievable. Super smooth. Number 2 is the Beast, and this coaster is legendary. Overall, the Beast is just a fun ride, day or night, and the lines for it weren't too bad because, I don't know why, but Kings Island, because there was some rain kind of during the day, the Beast wasn't really that crowded for me at all, and probably the longest I waited for it was 10 minutes. So the Beast was fantastic. I love riding it. Like, I got to ride it in the front row in the evening, and I thought it was fantastic. I've ridden it in the back. Like, I've ridden this ride all over the place. I rode this probably like 5 to 10 times when I was here. And overall, very fun ride experience. The Beast, super long. You have the speed. You have some solid drops despite the trim brakes. And overall, this is just an adventure. To me, this isn't really a roller coaster ride, but more of an adventure ride for me, for the Beast. But this is a very fun ride. Number 1, it's obvious, it's Diamondback. This ride is just fantastic. In my opinion, this year was the best year I ever got to ride Diamondback because I figured out at Carowinds how to not get stapled on these B&M hypercoasters, and I got some fantastic rides on Intimidator, and Diamondback definitely compares to it. These two are by far the best hypercoasters I've ridden, and Diamondback has some awesome airtime. The floater airtime is super strong, especially when you're not stapled. And I got to ride this coaster probably like 8 to 10 times, like a ton. It was the lack of lines, and even when there was a bit of a 15-minute wait, it felt like 5 minutes because the line was moving the whole time. This ride has a super high capacity, fantastic airtime, and it's just such an enjoyable experience. Just, man, Diamondback, very fun ride. Definitely the best coaster at Kings Island, and easily a top 10 roller coaster I've ridden. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching, and as always, stay tuned for more videos.